There isn't enough time to play all of the good games that released in 2024, so I didn't even try. 2024 had a lot of really good games come out all at once, and a lot of these games are really long, so you just kind of had to pick one and hope you made the right call. That basically describes the year perfectly. A large burst of amazing and diverse titles releasing at the same time, and then a month or two with nothing too compelling before the next burst of amazing games. It was really the year of RPGs. I mean, we had Final Fantasy VII, Persona 3, Yakuza 8. They released mere weeks apart from each other. But I didn't play all those because I was too busy being addicted to Pal World, which was the first major release of the year. We got Shin Megami Tensei 5 Definitive Edition, which people stopped caring about because Metaphor ReFantazio came out in October. Two different Mario RPGs, the first new Mario and Luigi game in a decade, and a remake of a beloved classic. Black Myth Wukong lit the internet on fire, and that new Elden Ring DLC was apparently so good that it was nominated for Game of the Year. I wouldn't know, I got stuck in the base game and never picked it back up again. Like I said, there's not enough time to play all of the best games of 2024, so let's just say if I didn't mention your favorite game, then odds are I didn't get around to it. But will, for the sake of argument, pretend that it is a 10 out of 10 classic to rival even the best in gaming. With that out of the way, let's get into it. You know a game is good when it ruins your sleep schedule. I've lost entire days to Pal World when it was released. It's not a very polished game, but if this is the base starting point for something that Pocket Pair will iterate on for years to come, then it's very promising. It's Pokemon Minecraft that you can play with friends, the map is huge, and the boss fights, despite being very clunky, are really addictive. So this year my cousin put me onto the game Cat's Quest, a simple yet addicting dungeon delving RPG. On the surface, it looks like just another open-world adventure game, but get another person involved and it becomes one of the most fun co-op experiences this side of Hazelight Studios. This year they released their third game, a pirate-themed adventure that changed up the way you go about building your character throughout your journey. Part of the fun of this game is exploring every corner of the map, discovering all the fun references and nods, or just areas themed around puns, and seeing what bizarre weapons or armor you can unlock by beating a boss or opening a chest. I played this game as the lead singer of Metallica. You could be a mermaid or a rat king, and there's even a nod to Castlevania where you go into a place called 8-Bit Dungeon and fight Dratcula, a vampire rat. Honestly, if you're looking for an amazing co-op experience that you'll never forget, you should definitely play Cat's Quest 2. But when you're done with that, give this one a look too. With the release of the Scarlet and Violet epilogue last year, I feel like it's finally time to give this game a proper spot on my list. I missed my chance in 2022's list because Arceus also came out that year, and overall I think it's just a better game. And the DLC didn't really put it in the running for a year as packed as 2023. This is definitely a game I will not forget my first time through. Such a different type of Pokemon game, and it was my favorite story hands down in a mainline Pokemon game. I really don't play it much nowadays, and even in 2024, I didn't do much with it outside of a few VGC events, and that Rayquaza raid that they did at the end of the year. But that's just because it's time to start looking forward to the next game. That doesn't mean I can't just give one last shout out to Pokemon Generation 9. Persona 3 Reload is definitely the game I spent the most time on this year. The Persona games are built around this slower type of gameplay that's meant to get you into the groove of living the lives of its protagonist. In addition to the usual dungeon crawling and turn-based battling of most RPGs, it adds a life simulation element where you work a job, hang out with friends, go to the movies, eat at restaurants, you get it. Once you get into the groove of it, it's very addicting. Persona 3 Reload takes Persona 3, a game that is notorious for being tough to get into, and simplifies it, giving it the UI of Persona 5, making fights less grindy, adding ultimate attacks, and it also adds new events and moments for these characters, allowing you to bond with your party even further, and get closer with your teammates a lot quicker than you would in the main game. I still think 5 is better, but this wasn't a bad experience in the slightest. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a game that isn't as flashy as something like Mario Wonder, but just as technically sound. You wouldn't think that Mario could do much with this limited boxy environment, but your movement and traversal options are crazy. It's really up to the player how they complete a level. The combination of crouching and jumping, flipping, handstanding really adds a lot to Mario's kit and allows him to pull off some fun tricks in what should be a slower, much smaller puzzle game. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. Is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero balanced? No. Is it on par with Street Fighter 6 or Guilty Gear Strive in terms of mechanical depth? No. Should it be at the next major fighting game tournament? No. Is it insanely fun? Absolutely. Dragon Ball is a hard series to be critical of. Not only because it made up a bunch of people's childhoods, but you also can't criticize it without looking like someone who hates fun, which is why there's going to be several people in the comments threatening to chop my head off even though I'm recommending this game. It's got the same pace as pro wrestling. The narrative is a lot of building up to something cool happening. Most of the stuff that happens before Goku comes in to solve a problem can be shortened or taken out entirely because it doesn't actually accomplish anything. Characters will get boosts or power-ups and then still get their butts kicked because only Goku or Gohan can win. But none of that matters, because when that music hits and Goku is going toe-to-toe with Frieza, or Gohan is fighting Cell, or Gogeta is beating the snot out of Zamasu, nothing beats that adrenaline. This game lets you do that. Oh, and it's also a direct sequel to the Budokai Tenkaichi series, which is the game that basically defined the anime arena fighter genre for better or worse. The Tenkaichi series is legitimately some of the most pure, dumb fun you can have with an action game. Oh, would you look at that? Another Toriyama game with the word dragon in its name. Anyway, this game is stunningly gorgeous. Landscapes and vistas light up with vibrant colors. I would love for the team that brought us this game to handle the next Pokemon remake. Could you imagine Pokemon Black and White looking like this? Not to mention, it's a game that's known for heavy customization options, and even adds a new class. The game itself is one of the most fun SNES JRPGs out of sheer game mechanics alone, and I gotta play more Dragon Quest after this. If you had told me in 2011 that they were going to release a sequel to Sonic Generations that is also a sequel to Shadow the Hedgehog, I would have never believed you. Shadow Generations is a game that I didn't know I was allowed to ask for. It takes the worst parts of other Sonic games and then turns them into the best parts, turning Shadow into the most capable character in the Sonic franchise, with a bunch of different new tricks to traverse levels. I had so much fun trying to get the best times in levels. There is a lot of really creative ways on which you can cut down your times, which I discover every time I play. Legitimately the best Sonic game in a long time. I cannot believe the funny Golden Alpaca Lemonade game is this good. This year, Axe Studios released a patch to their once widely hated game, Y2K, a postmodern RPG. In addition to bumping up the presentation of certain key moments and adding entirely new storylines, it completely overhauls the battle system, taking something that was once a minigame crammed slog and turning it into one of the most fun and nuanced systems I've seen in a turn-based RPG. Every character has attacks and abilities that they can use, but what really sells this is the Karta mechanic. These Karta not only act as a shield to your actual HP, but while they are active, they provide positive buffs such as allowing you to attack through enemy Karta, or giving you a greater chance to get rare item drops. They are also consumable items with crazy powerful effects, such as healing your entire party or drawing you a completely new hand from the ether. This allows you to get really creative with how you handle battles. I never dread boss fights in this game because my mind is engaged the entire time. I think people are now willing to look onto this game more fondly. With the way that this game has turned around, people are now discovering that the things that they used to hate about this game are now the things they enjoy about it the most, and it gives it a sense of richness. There is no game this year that deserves to win more than Astro Bot. It's a celebration of Sony's 30-year-long history throughout the world of gaming. It's like a giant birthday party, and we all get to attend as gamers, in a game that can rival even some of Nintendo's best platformers. I gotta be honest, the last 3 entries on this list all were in the running for number 1. But upon further deliberation, and some convincing from my editor Justin, I see you bro, I realized that the game of the year could only be this game. It's a game that wears the industry on its sleeve and has history running through its veins. A game that not only celebrates its past, but looks to the future. This game had me grinning ear to ear throughout the 20 hours it took to 100% this game. And anyone who turns this game on for a second can see why. It's oozing with charm. That'll do it for my list for the top 10 games of 2024, but before we go, I wanted to address something from one of my previous videos. I said that 2024 was an odd year for gaming. For the longest time, it was a toss-up whether or not I could call it a good year for gaming. On one hand, it's been one of the best years in terms of sheer releases. However, that comes off the heels of, well, a lot of the people who made this particular industry great losing their jobs. It is harder and way more competitive nowadays to actually find work in this field, but 2024 has shown us that it isn't impossible. Balatro was a massive success, probably the biggest success story this year. It was made by one person from concept to screen and became one of the most talked about games this year, even getting nominated for Game of the Year. Now, even though it didn't win, I still consider this to be one of the most legendary achievements in video games. It was up against the stiffest of stiff competition. I already sung the praises of Astro Bot, but let's check out the others on the list really quickly. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, one of the biggest, most open-ended RPGs of all time, set in the iconic Final Fantasy VII lore. Metaphor ReFantagio, a game that many say is on par or better than Persona 5. Say what you will about Shadow of the Erd Tree, But that's a FromSoft game, and those usually dominate. It's especially shocking when you find out that this is Local Thunk's first ever game, and it went toe-to-toe with some of the best that gaming has to offer. Now, cards on the table, get it? I never played Balatro. I've got my copy at the ready, and I am planning on it, but I don't even need to sing its praises. This game had one of the most legendary runs in video game history, and will go down as an all-time classic. It's on every other top 10 list you've watched this year on this topic, and I can guarantee you that if I had played Balatro, it would be on mine as well. Balatro wasn't the only first, however. Black Myth Wukong was Game Science's first ever AAA title, and a lot of people talked about it and said it was their favorite this year. Helldivers and Palworld proved that you don't even need to have a massive AAA budget to put out something fun and ultimately lucrative. Palworld, within its first month, surpassed PUBG as the paid game with the most concurrent players. All of this while major developers are scrambling to figure out what to do about us. Their old tactics don't work anymore. We're not falling for the same open world multiplayer live service content machines or whatever other descriptors you can think of. 2024 taught me 3 things. There is no better time in the world to put out your idea. You may not know the road ahead of you, but part of the fun is learning how to build it. Number 2, we are jaded, but we are not immovable. And number 3, the old guard is dead. Long live the new guard. Yeah, I can safely say that 2024 was a great year for gaming. And I'll see you on the next video, whatever that may be.